something going on down there. Fast as us.
Back in 1967, the Herculoids hit TV like a punch to the face. While other Saturday morning shows were soft and silly, this one dropped kids onto a hostile alien world filled with rock apes, laser dragons, energy rhinos, and two blobs that could shapeshift into anything. It felt wild, primal, and way too intense for the time, which is exactly why kids were obsessed with it. But behind that chaos was a strange production experiment, network pressure, and constant complaints that the show was too violent for TV. It was bold, it was controversial, and it left a mark that never really went away. These are 16 weird facts about the Herculoids, 1967, the cartoon that battled alien censors and its own network. Number 1. The Space Ghost experiment that launched them. Before the Herculoids ever had their own series, Hanna-Barbera secretly tested the characters inside another show. They first appeared in the Council of Doom arc of Space Ghost, where Xandor and the creatures show up on planet Amzot to help Space Ghost escape. It was a bold move, dropping brand new characters into an already popular series just to see how kids reacted. The experiment worked better than anyone expected. Viewers loved the creatures instantly, especially Gloop and Gleep, whose powers were unlike anything else on TV at the time. Hanna-Barbera realized they had stumbled onto something bigger than a one-off crossover. One guest appearance turned into a full green light, and the Herculoids were born.
Thank you, Xandor, and thanks to your animals, the Herculoids. But I must hurry back. Good luck, Space Ghost.
Number 2. CBS ordered it as part of a 3-show action pack. The Herculoids wasn't born alone. It arrived as part of a bold move by CBS to reshape Saturday mornings. After Space Ghost proved kids were hungry for tougher, more dramatic adventure shows, the network commissioned 3 brand new action series at once: The Herculoids, Shazam, and Moby Dick, and Mighty Mytor. This meant Hanna-Barbera suddenly had 3 high-intensity productions running in parallel. Crews were swapped between shows, backgrounds were repurposed, and even character designers had to jump from one universe to another overnight. The studio was working at a pace that, by 60s standards, was absolutely insane. But the gamble worked. Out of this forced action pack, the Herculoids stood out immediately as the wildest, strangest, and most visually aggressive of the bunch, the one that pushed the limits of what Saturday morning cartoons could be.
Magno beams! They're pulling me down! Control! Fire!
Number 3. The planet's name was quietly retconned. In the original 1967 series, Xandor and his family live on a wild alien world called Amzot, a name that pops up repeatedly in early model sheets, scripts, and the Space Ghost crossover. For years, fans assumed that was the official permanent home of the Herculoids, but when the characters were revived in 1981, something strange happened. The planet was suddenly renamed Quasar, with no explanation. Writers just switched the name mid-franchise, leaving older viewers confused and younger ones none the wiser. Later interviews and guides tried to smooth things over by suggesting Amzot was just a region on Quasar, but the truth is much simpler. Hanna-Barbera changed the name because they felt Quasar sounded more modern, a quiet retcon born from an era obsessed with space-age branding. Number 4. It was canceled for being too violent and replaced by Scooby-Doo. Even in the Anything Goes 1960s, the Herculoids pushed the envelope. Laser blasts, exploding monsters, collapsing fortresses. Every episode played like a miniature sci-fi war film. Kids loved it, but parents' groups did not. Complaints piled up fast, especially from organizations monitoring children's programming. By the end of its first season, CBS had a decision to make, and they blinked. The network quietly pulled the plug, labeling the show too intense for Saturday mornings, and replaced it with something softer, safer, and infinitely more merchandise-friendly. Scooby-Doo. It's ironic. The Herculoids battled aliens, robots, and space tyrants, but in the end, they were defeated by a mystery-solving dog. Number 5. The show got caught in the 1970s. Cartoon violence crackdown. A few years after the Herculoids ended, a wave of government-funded studies started targeting violence in children's TV. Panels, watchdog groups, and even newspaper editorials singled out action cartoons as a problem. And shows like The Herculoids were used as examples of what networks should avoid going forward. This scrutiny hit hard. Broadcasters, terrified of bad press and federal pressure, began steering away from anything that looked too aggressive or intense. Reruns of adventure shows were quietly trimmed, time-shifted, or replaced altogether with safer, educational content. The legacy of that crackdown followed The Herculoids for decades. It helped shape the myth that the series was somehow dangerous, and it kept the show out of rotation long after its original run ended.
I like the door guides, but I don't like their neighbors.
You can say that again, Dorno.
Number 6. Alex Toth's original names were completely different. Before the show ever aired, legendary designer Alex Toth created early model sheets with names that almost made it to screen. In those first drafts, Xandor wasn't Xandor. He was called Zartan, and Dorno, he originally appeared as Domo. Even Terra's name went through multiple revisions as Toth refined the family's look. These weren't tiny tweaks either. Toth was experimenting with harsher, pulpy sci-fi naming conventions before the studio stepped in and pushed for something cleaner and more kid-friendly. The final names may be iconic now, but they were absolutely not the first versions. It's a reminder of how different the Herculoids could have sounded. One small change and we might have grown up with Zartan and the Herculoids instead.
These ancient cities had many subterranean chambers, Tara.
Well, I don't want to see any more of them. Look out, Igu! You can say that again, Igu.
Number 7. The minimalist look was a trick to stretch a tiny budget. At first glance, the Herculoids looks bold, intense, and almost graphic novel-like. But that striking style wasn't just an artistic choice. It was a survival strategy. Hanna-Barbera was producing multiple action shows at once, and budgets were razor thin. So Alex Toth built the Herculoids designs around big silhouettes, clean lines, and simple shapes that could animate well even with very few drawings. This meant Zock's wings could flap using the same 3 frames. Igu's massive body could move with minimal stretching, and Gloop and Gleep, they were practically made for limited animation. Smooth blobs that could morph into anything without demanding expensive in-betweens. The result was genius. The show looked powerful and dynamic, even when the animators were stretching every dollar. Limited animation never looked this epic.
Faster, Zock, faster! If Xandor gets in any trouble, he'll need these.
If you're enjoying these weird facts, you're only halfway through the madness, and the craziest stuff is still coming. From recycled Johnny Quest music to international name changes that turned the Herculoids into completely different characters, the surprises just get stranger from here. Hit subscribe. Use the hype feature to boost this video so more retro fans can find it, and stick around. The next facts dive even deeper into the wild production secrets behind this legendary cartoon. Number 8. The music was recycled straight from Johnny Quest. The Herculoids world feels alien and dangerous, but listen closely and you'll notice something familiar. A lot of the background music wasn't written for the show at all. Hanna-Barbera pulled heavily from Hoyt Curtin's Johnny Quest library, dropping those adventurous big band action cues into an entirely different universe.
Faster, Tundro! Faster!
It was a clever shortcut. Instead of building a brand new score under tight deadlines, they paired Johnny Quest's intense orchestral themes with the Herculoids' brutal sci-fi battles, and the combination worked shockingly well. The music made the show feel bigger and more expensive than it really was. Most kids never realized they were hearing repurposed tracks, but that hidden Johnny Quest heartbeat helped give the Herculoids its signature pulse. Number 9. The 18 episodes secretly played like 36. CBS officially ordered just 18 episodes of the Herculoids, which sounds tiny for a show that felt everywhere in reruns. But here's the trick. Each broadcast was split into 2 separate 11-minute stories, effectively doubling the number of adventures without doubling the budget. This format gave Hanna-Barbera a huge advantage. Shorter plots meant faster production, tighter action scenes, and almost no filler. Every segment had to jump straight into chaos, and for kids, it felt like a non-stop double feature every week. It fooled networks too. With 36 standalone stories to shuffle and repackage, the series looked far bigger than it really was, helping it survive for years across different anthology blocks and rerun schedules. Number 10. International versions renamed everyone, sometimes hilariously. When the Herculoids traveled overseas, it didn't just get dubbed, it got rebranded, big time. In Hong Kong, the show aired under a title that roughly meant Tarzan in space, pushing Xandor's jungle warrior vibe to the extreme. In Japan, it became Monster King Targan, and every single character was renamed as if it were a brand new franchise. Spanish-speaking markets went their own direction too, promoting the series as Los Defensores Interplanetarios, the Interplanetary Defenders, a title that made it sound like an epic sci-fi superhero team. These versions weren't minor changes. They completely reshaped how audiences perceived the show, turning the Herculoids into whatever local broadcasters thought would hit hardest. One cartoon, countless identities. Number 11. The show refused to die. It kept coming back for decades. For a series with only one original season, the Herculoids proved weirdly unkillable. After its 1968 finale, the show resurfaced in Hanna-Barbera's World of Super Adventure, where its 11-minute episodes were chopped up, repackaged, and rerun to a whole new generation of kids. Then came another resurrection. In 1981, the family and all their creatures returned with 11 brand new episodes inside the anthology series Space Stars. Even after that revival faded, the reruns kept circulating, first on Cartoon Network, then on Boomerang, where it quietly built a cult following. Decades later, the Herculoids were still on screen. A tiny show with a tiny budget somehow became one of Hanna-Barbera's most persistent survivors. Number 12. Gloop and Gleep accidentally inspired a video game icon. Of all the Herculoids, the two shape-shifting blobs were the strangest and the most unexpectedly influential. Years later, game designer David Crane, co-creator of Pitfall, revealed that the friendly, stretchy companion in his NES game A Boy and His Blob was directly inspired by Gloop and Gleep. Their ability to morph into anything, shields, springs, ladders, you name it, stuck with him since childhood. Crane didn't copy their look, but the concept of a helpful blob with transformative powers came straight from watching the Herculoids in the 60s. It's one of the rare times a Saturday morning cartoon directly shaped a video game classic. So yes, the blobs from this wild sci-fi show helped create a cult favorite Nintendo character, only in the 60s. Number 13. The 1981 revival was forced to tone everything down. When Hanna-Barbera brought the Herculoids back in 1981 for Space Stars, the studio ran into a new problem: the late 70s backlash against violent cartoons. Networks were now terrified of laser blasts, explosions, and anything that looked remotely intense for kids. So the writers were told to soften the entire tone. Battles became shorter, creatures attacked less aggressively, and Xandor, who once fought like a barbarian space warrior, was suddenly far calmer and more dad-like. Even the creature's powers were used less destructively, leaning more toward defense and slapstick than raw force. It was still the Herculoids, but filtered through a stricter era. A universe once built on savage alien battles had to evolve into something gentler, just to survive on TV. Number 14. The creatures were designed like toys before. Toyetic was even a word. Long before the toy boom of the 80s, Alex Toth created the Herculoids creatures with a clear, simple rule. Every creature gets one big, unmistakable power. Egu is pure brute force, Zoc blasts energy beams, Tundro fires explosive projectiles, and Gloop and Gleep can morph into anything their animators needed. This wasn't about merchandising. This was the 60s, long before the toy-driven era of He-Man and Transformers, but the effect was identical. Kids instantly understood each creature's gimmick, and every character felt like a living action figure, complete with a signature move. The irony? Even with this perfect blueprint, the Herculoids never received a major toy line. The designs were simply ahead of their time, too toy-ready for an era that didn't yet realize what it had. Number 15. The home video release finally restored lost elements. For years, fans only knew the Herculoids through fuzzy TV reruns, chopped up anthologies, and prints that were missing tiny but important details. When Warner Archive released the complete series DVD in 2011, it was exciting. But collectors quickly noticed that some elements weren't fully intact, like certain versions of the original opening narration and alternate title cards that had shown up in older broadcasts. It took a decade for that to be fixed. The 2021 Blu-ray restoration finally brought back those missing pieces, presenting the series in a cleaner, more complete form than most fans had ever seen. It even preserved details that hadn't aired properly since the 60s. For a show with such a chaotic broadcast history, seeing it finally restored felt like rescuing a lost sci-fi artifact. Number 16. The Herculoids are returning in a new comic series. More than 50 years after their debut, the Herculoids are gearing up for another comeback. In 2024, Dynamite Entertainment announced a brand new Herculoids comic series set to launch in 2025, bringing Xandor, Terra, Dorno, and all the creatures back into modern storytelling alongside other revived Hanna-Barbera icons. This isn't a cameo or a nostalgic tribute. It's a full reboot meant to reintroduce the team to a new generation, with updated art, new lore, and a fresh take on their alien world. For a franchise that survived cancellations, network battles, and decades of reruns, this is the closest thing to a true revival it's had in years. After half a century, the Herculoids are still not done fighting. The Herculoids might have lasted only one season, but it carved out a legacy far bigger than its episode count. It was bold, strange, and way more intense than anything else kids were watching. A sci-fi fever dream, fueled by Alex Toth's designs, recycled Johnny Quest music, and creatures that felt like living action figures before action figures even ruled the world. It battled censors, survived network shifts, got resurrected in the 80s, and is now returning in comics more than 50 years later. Not many shows from that era can say that. So if you grew up watching rock apes, laser dragons, and shape-shifting blobs defending a wild alien planet, you were part of something pretty unique. And if you didn't, well, now you know the weirdness you missed. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the hype feature so we can keep exploring the strangest corners of retro sci-fi.